Hi there, welcome to today's video. I am Natasha of Natasha Miller Creates, and today we are kicking it old school, or at least my old school. We are doing a pull tab. So this will be my first time doing a pull tab in a long time. I did a lot of these back in the day, but I wanted to do one again this month because my theme is really fun, but we'll get to that in a minute. We are doing a invisible pull tab. So what you see me doing here is I am cutting layers into my notebook. I'm using about 6 pages, and the first 4 pages I'm cutting the square into. The 5th page will hold the mechanism for the pull tab, and then the 6th page is gluing the pull tab together. So we'll get to that shortly. What you see me doing here is cutting squares. The first page I cut a rectangle, and the second page I am cutting grass into the rectangle. I have more detailed instructions over on my blog that you can follow along as well. And if you want a separate video on this, please let me know down below and I will be happy to do a slowed down breakdown of how you can make these pull tabs. I'll also link other videos up above where I've used the same mechanism, and we will go from there. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a layered setting for my pull tab. And what I'm doing is I'm cutting grassy hills into my area where I'm going to be putting in my pull tab. So the reason why I'm cutting so many layers is that this way the pull tab sits buried or cradled into this area so that when I'm using the following pages, I'm not running into as many bumps as I would if this were just 2 or 3 pages. I found this actually worked really well, and if I'm going to be doing pull tabs in the future again, I will definitely do this. Like I mentioned, I've done pull tabs in the past, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't, and also what works in the long term and what doesn't. The biggest difference for this pull tab is that I'm actually cutting a tab into the page as well. So the following pages are trimmed to be glued to the bottom of that tab page. So you'll get a better idea of that toward the end of the video. But for now, I'm just kind of getting all my pieces together so that I can get the effect that I want. So I'm using a craft knife. Again, I feel I'm very comfortable with my craft knife, so cutting in a straight line without a ruler is not a problem, but please cut with a ruler if you're not comfortable, especially because it is in a journal, and I know this is probably a little bit horrifying for some people where I'm just freehanding with a craft knife in my journal. So I'm just going in and trimming off the sides so that it would, when it all glues together, none of the pages stick out. I am trimming it a little shorter than I did the front page. That way, again, like I said, the edges of the page doesn't stick out. I will be adding a lot of background inks to it. I'll be using my Distress Oxide inks, and so I don't want any little white bits sticking out. So I'm measuring the middle of the page where I will be putting in the slits for the invisible pull tab. And so I created the slit at the top, and I'll be creating a slit at the bottom. And the invisible pull tab, which is a piece of plastic, will slip in between those 2 pieces. And then, of course, I'm drawing in the little slit where the pull tab's going to come through. So you're drawing 3 areas for slits. My slits are 7 boxes across. The slits for the invisible pull tab are 7 boxes across, and then they're just under half a box wide. And then the pull tab is going to be 5 boxes. So right now I just measured to make sure that the cowl fits the slits, and then I'm just cutting that to size. You'll see after we decorate, we're going to go in and reinforce those slits. In previous pull tabs that I've done, sometimes the paper does tend to cause friction and rip the plastic. So you'll see we'll be reinforcing that. I'm using repositionable tape to hold my UFO into position so that I know where I want to put my light, and I can figure that out and just pull it off when I'm ready to decorate. So I'm just measuring out where and how the color needs to go. I'll be using a yellow Distress ink, the Squeezed Lemonade, and I'm just masking it off with some washi tape and some Post-it notes. I've run into issues where I got a little bit too enthusiastic and ended up getting ink everywhere, which is why I do the additional Post-it notes to just kind of keep everything clean and neat and tidy. And as you can see, I'm reusing Post-it notes. I did practice this technique. I can show you my practice session over on my Instagram, but I did want to work through this and kind of get an idea of how it was going to look and how I wanted it to look. So, and then also run through the instructions so that they make sense. And it came out really well. I didn't need a second practice run because #lazy, #too much time. So I was comfortable going ahead. I'm using the Twisted Citron to decorate the top of the heels, and then I'll be using the Mowed Lawn to do the rest of the heel. This way it kind of gives a more interest, kind of a highlight to the heel, and I thought it was fun with the light shining. And yeah, so when you're creating backgrounds with the Distress inks, it's just a lot of back and forth so that you can blend it in so that you have a smoother blend. As you can see where I put the sponge down, the color's darker, the sponge shape is more pronounced, and so it's just going back and forth. You'll see when I do the sky portion, this was the easier part because it's such a small little area. But you definitely get a bit of an arm workout, especially depending on the paper and the journal you're using. I'm using a B5 Archer and Olive notebook. The paper, once you get the first layer of ink down, it blends pretty easily. So thankfully it wasn't too much of an arm workout. So now I'm going back and I'm going to add the sky, and I'm taping over the yellow. Now you want to make sure the ink dries before you go in and mask it off. Otherwise, the ink's going to be too wet, the masking tape or the sticky notes aren't going to stick, and you're going to end up with a giant mess. So, and it doesn't take that long to dry, it just needs a few minutes, and then you can go in and start adding or masking it off and adding your color. I'm using Faded Jeans right around the beam of light so that you kind of get the sense that the light is radiating off into the distance. I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll see when it's all done. And then I'm using Chipped Sapphire to go along the edges of Faded Jeans. And then I'll be using Black Soot around the edges as well. And I have sped this up a lot because it does take a little while, but I wanted you to see how I go back and forth between Black Soot, Chipped Sapphire, and Faded Jeans to kind of get a very smooth blended effect. Again, part of this will be hidden, so you don't have to do the whole page. You can if you want, but I didn't want to because I wanted to move on. But as you can see, after going back and forth for a little while and blending it in, you do get a very smooth blend, and you can barely tell where the sponge shapes are or where you first put it down, where the color is more saturated. And then I just peel off the pieces and save them for later. And here I am reinforcing the slits. So I'm just using sticky tape and reinforcing the slits at the top, the bottom, and the sides. This is the back of the page, and that's where I use the most tape, just so that it's a little bit less resistance and the paper doesn't cut into the plastic as much. All of my pull tabs from back in the day are still intact, surprisingly. But yeah, this is just an extra safety precaution for maintaining the longevity of your pull tab. If you want to see a video of my pull tabs from days gone by, let me know down below. I'll be happy to share them. It's fun to go back and see how it works. Normally, if you're making cards, I would do these pull tabs differently, but because it's in a journal, in a notebook, and you're kind of limited in how you can create these pull tabs, you don't want to get too crazy in your notebooks. You still want it to be functional. Or at least I need functionality as well as it being pretty. So now I'm back on the front page and I want to extend the grass. I want to make sure that I capture the grass. So I am masking off areas again. I'm masking off the left page otherwise you accidentally get color on it, and I didn't want that. So masking off where I penciled in the areas for the grass that are layered over top there, or sorry, layered underneath. And I'm just going to go in with the green and add the color. Starting again with the Twisted Citron to give it a bit of a highlight, and then go in with the Mowed Lawn to finish it up. I have multiple of these sponges, at least the handles, for projects just like these, so that I don't have to keep changing out one sponge all the time. And I found it to be very helpful. And when you're pulling up your tape, just be very careful. I did have a little bit of my page rip, but it wasn't enough that you could see from far. Here I am cutting my plastic to size. This is a piece of wrapping from, I believe, ephemera that I got from Tim Holtz for mixed media journaling. I sorted all of my mixed media journaling stuff, and I ended up having a ton of this plastic left over. And then I always like to save it for random little projects and ideas that I get. But we're cutting the plastic to size. And then what we're doing is you want to glue it together, but you don't want it to be too tight, because if it's too tight, it's not going to rotate easily around the two slits that you cut. It's going to get stuck and it's going to be difficult. So definitely give it some space so that it's not forcing itself through. And you're also going to run into issues where the plastic's going to rip. So definitely don't pull it too tight. And then what I did was I glued down the edge and then put tape around it so that if you're pulling it through the slits, it doesn't get caught in the slit and, again, rip and tear. So now I'm creating the front of the night sky, or the night sky on the front page. And again, I just went in with the chipped sapphire and the black soot because this is a little further away from the beam of light. And I used pumice stone over top just to desaturate the color a little bit because I thought it looked nice. Now, this is an extra step that you don't have to do. I don't know if I recommend it. It was a huge mess, but I'm using a white paint to go in and add some stars. The paint I'm using is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And I just dip a paintbrush in and I tap the paintbrush so that the splatters go everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. It was on my camera. It was everywhere. But I do think the effect was worth it, so I was happy. I'm just trimming down the pages a little bit more so that they don't stick out from behind the cover page. And now you can see I'm starting to glue the pages in place. I'm gluing around the edges and then the edges of the square that I cut out and then the edges of the page. That way it just reinforces it better and I'm not going to get random things stuck in there. I've definitely had that happen before. And then just gluing it flat, closing the notebook, making sure that it's flat. And then I added in the color for the tab, which I used black soot for the very first tab. And I'm just going to go in through all the pages, all the pages, so the cover page and then the layered pages, and glue those together, leaving the pull tab page unglued for the time being. And that's because there are still some elements we need to finish up on that page. And like I said, just trimming everything down to size so that it doesn't stick out along the bottom. I'm using double-sided tape. You can get this on Amazon or Michael's, or I think I even got these from the dollar store. And I mean, I'm sure it's not acid-free, so it might not last long term, but that's fine. This is just for me anyways. And now I'm gluing my cow onto the plastic. I scored the sticker, so my cow is a sticker, and I just stuck down the bottom part of the cow so onto the plastic, so that its legs wouldn't get stuck on the heels, the green heels. And now I'm cutting the tab for the pull tab, or the slit for the pull tab. I know this is going really, really fast. When you're gluing down your elements, you want to make sure that the portion of the plastic that is glued is at the bottom with the cow. Now you can see I didn't do that, and that was by mistake. I go in and I fix it later. The reason why you want to make sure that that glued portion of your mechanism is in the right place is to make sure that it doesn't get caught on the slits when you're pulling it up and down. So the cow, like I said, the cow should have been glued toward the bottom, and you'll see me correct that in a moment. But I ended up gluing my pull tab over top of that section where the mechanism is glued, and that's because it's not going to go through the slits and cause bumps and humps and get stuck. So you'll see that when I turn the page again, that I glued my pull tab onto that portion of the plastic. And when you're gluing your pull tab onto the plastic, make sure that your cow or your element is at the very top of the page, and you're gluing the very end of your pull tab to the bottom of the mechanism. So that way, when you push your pull tab up, your cow's going to come down. Again, you'll get a better idea of that in a minute when I slow it down. And then also there are more detailed instructions and pictures on the blog. So you can have this video open and the blog post open and you'll get a better idea. If that still doesn't work for you, let me know. I can break this down for you even more. As always, I'm doing my borders because I love my borders. And then one more thing about the pull tab, you don't want to cut it to size until the very end. So here I made sure that my pull tab was in the right place and the cow was in the right place. And then I put the cow away. I set everything to the neutral position, and that's when I cut my pull tab. I'm now gluing my spaceship, and as you can see, my cow happily goes up into the spaceship. And so the pull tab was still wet from the ink, so I decided that was going to be an issue, or I realized that was going to be an issue, and I actually went in and I glued another piece of cardboard down onto the pull tab to reinforce it, which is what you see me doing here. Now, as you can see, the pull tab mechanism is completely up, and the cow will be at the bottom on the front page. And then when I pull it down, the cow's going to move up into the spaceship. And this just helps to reinforce it and makes it easier to pull, and it's a smoother pull, and it's smoother to put it back in place. And then just to decorate, I did corner punch the edges because I do like rounded edges. It does look a little bit funny, like I should have, there's a joke in design where ask a 13-year-old boy to proofread your work to make sure that there's nothing dirty about it. And I don't think my pull tab would pass the test on this one, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, we're gluing the page shut now. And I just put glue around the edges of the page, and then just to reinforce along the bottom of the pull tab slit. And that is it. Your pull tab is basically ready to go. I don't show it here, but I did end up going in and adding 2 little cows onto the heels so that the cows were standing there. You'll see it when I do my flip through. The quote page I'm using is "Please Leave Me Stranded, It's So Romantic," which is obviously a Taylor Swift lyric. And if you came from Instagram, you know what this theme is about. And basically, this layout for August is about the song Down Bad from Tortured Poets Department. I had a lot of fun putting it together. This song inspired this. I don't know why, but when you talk about alien abduction, it's cows, you know. So I have cows representing the lyrics to the song. I will add the video to the very end so that you can check it out, but it is on my Instagram and it should be on my YouTube shorts, but I will share it here at the end anyways. So the reason why I chose that quote for my page is because it ties into Down Bad, where she sings that it's not romantic to be left stranded, and the songs are related to a degree. So I'm not going to get into that. I'm not a huge Swiftie. I do enjoy the law. I do follow the law, but that's not why we're here. So I'm onto my calendar page and I'm adding in my tab. I drew the lines for my calendar. It's the same calendar layout I've been using all year. And I wanted to, this page relates to For a Moment I Knew Cosmic Love. So I'm masking off the functional area, and we'll be doing a dark sky space around it. So I've masked off my tabs, I've masked off my calendar. I'm going to put some tape over top there. Like I said, I'm messy, and so I would find a way to get ink in the wrong place. And so I just masked everything off to make sure that I was going to get ink where I wanted to. And I'm just using scrap paper to protect the back pages so I don't get, again, ink everywhere. So this is kind of like galaxy building. It just takes some time. I added in my blue and then my black around, and basically you're just going to go back and forth until you get your desired effect. So I'm just alternating between chipped sapphire and black soot. And this, like I said, the first layer is kind of challenging to get down, but after that it goes on very smoothly and very easily, and you just blend all the ink colors together and you end up getting this really cool effect. I think I did the stars again with the paint, with the bleed proof white. I mean, everything was already covered in inks or in the paint, so what's a little bit of extra for a really cool effect? You can't really see the effect as well on the camera right now, but it does look cool, and you can check my Instagram to see, or my blog post to see how cool the effect is. Carefully pull off my tape and the sticky notes, and you can see them at the top of the screen. They're hanging off one of my shelves and I put them there to use for when I need to mask off more areas, which you'll see later. I'm using the scrapbook vintage type lowercase to do my days of the week. They look like a typewriter, and of course, Tortured Poets Department, the typewriter has a role in the album. So that is why I chose that font. And then for my headings, I actually decided to go with my tried and true absolute favorite Amy Tangerine alphabet set. And I'm just using my Tom Studio Lumos pen with the size 1.0 nib to write in the days of the numbers for the days of the week. And adding in my borders, which didn't really make a difference here, but it is what it is. Now, I need to do 2 call outs here. I am using the Metallic StazOn ink in silver. I kid you not, I bought this ink years ago. I bought this ink so long ago, I don't even remember. And it held up. It came with a re-inker. I re-inked the pad and it worked perfectly fine. Now, I wouldn't recommend using the StazOn ink just in any journal. I was comfortable using it here because I knew that I had a bunch of pages glued to the back and it wasn't going to bleed through. So just kind of keep that in mind. The StazOn ink is so fantastic for stamping on anything, but stamping in notebooks with it makes me nervous. And then I'm using, again, years old stamp cleaner that worked so well to get the StazOn metallic ink off. So I was really happy. Those were my 2 MVPs for the setup. I also, on the previous page, made a mistake, and I just cut a piece of paper and glued it over top, and it was all good to go. So this is my monthly overview page. I made a mistake and I called it monthly review instead of overview, but at this point, I was getting tired and I didn't have it in me to correct something that big. Like, I would have to essentially like glue a huge strip of paper in, and I just wasn't, my brain didn't want to fix it. My brain didn't care. It is what it is. So for my monthly overview page, I include important dates that are coming up for the month, art licensing to-do list, my goals that I want to focus on, and then a general to-do list. And as far as the song goes, this page represents down bad crying in the gym. So I'm adding in my squares using my B5 dot grid ruler from Archer and Olive, which again is one of my favorite products they've ever released outside of the notebooks, of course. So just tidying this page a bit, I'm using the Distress inks to color in the tabs. Normally I use my acrylographs. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little lazy to figure out the acrylograph colors I'd need, and I don't really have a super defined color scheme. I kind of went with what I felt was appropriate in terms of color scheme. So I didn't want to have to figure out the acrylograph inks on top of that. So I'm masking off an area to do a little heel, and I'm doing the same effect with the Twisted Citron and the Mowed Lawn. Was it that noticeable? Not really. Would I do it again? Maybe not. And then, as you could see, I got some ink everywhere, so I tidied that up and stamped in August. And the to-do list, my weekly setup is the same as it's been all year. The only difference is I changed it up a little bit based on the theme. So I'm stamping circles, and inside the circles, I'm stamping the first letter of the day of the week, and that kind of, again, leans into that typewriter feel. So I have my habit tracker, my to-do list. The left side of the to-do list is my personal to-do list. The right side is my work to-do list. And yeah, just very straightforward. Same one I've been using. I find this to be working so well for me, so I'm very hesitant to change it up because I'm going to get busier. August is already a crazy month, so I'm happy as is. And then adding in my borders. And then as far as the lyrics go, this page represents Everything Comes Out Teenage Petulance. So for Teenage Petulance, I have a cow with multiple piercings and a branded tattoo. And the branded tattoo is my logo, NMC, which Natasha Miller creates. So this is the next week. This one represents What If I Can't Have Him, and it's a cow staring at a bull. And I didn't show the full setup. I just wanted to show the stickers. This page represents I Might Just Die, It Would Make No Difference. And because I have a sick sense of humor, I have ribs and a steak. And this says Down Bad, Waking Up in Blood. And it's a cow waking up from a nightmare as a hamburger. And now we're into my actual monthly review page, which is like my month in review page. I decided to go back and add some color, as in the night sky, because this is the last verse that I'm representing in the setup. I have my green grass going. This is going to represent staring at the sky, come back and beam me up. So there will be a cow and a spaceship, which is why I wanted to do a little bit of the night sky, and then of course a little bit of the grass. So I started stamping with my StazOn metallic ink, but the background was still a little bit wet. So I put it aside to wait for it to dry for a little bit, and then I come back in and I stamp in. I left it in. You'll see. You see my head because I need to line up exactly where the eye was so that it doesn't look all messed up. So on this page, I look at my biggest accomplishments for the month, other wins, how I feel, how I celebrated, and then my focus for the next month. On the right-hand side of the page is more of a memory keeping aspect. I haven't been using it that much. I need to go back and fill it in, so we'll see how it goes. So I hope you enjoyed today's setup. Oh, and then I just used a paint pen to put in the dots of the stars because I didn't want to bring out the whole big mess just for that one little section. I also miscalculated the number of pages I would need for the month, and so I ended up with extra pages. And in order to mark what this setup was about, I took photos of my record, my Tortured Poets Department vinyl that I have, and ended up putting it all together and putting the lyrics in the notebook. But this is my setup. As you can see, I went back, I added the cows, and I stamped in the month, which is August. And yeah, I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I was giggling the whole time. I was going to do this setup for July, so I have had the lyrics for Down Bad stuck in my head for months. Basically, when I first came up with this idea, I have been singing Down Bad in my head and figuring out how I was going to represent the different elements. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will be popping the reel onto the end of this video so that you can see, because I'm really proud of it. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. For more bullet journal setup inspiration, you can check out one of these two videos. I'll see you over there.